Afternoon, Amina.
Hi, hello.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
So good to meet you. I've known you for such a long time, and it's a real privilege to capture your story, have a talk with you about politics here in East London, where you've lived for such a long time as well as I have, and talk about representation and whatever else crosses our minds. So why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Well, hello, I'm Amina Ali, as you know. Welcome to Cllr Hamlets here in the lovely gardens in Canary Wharf. So I'm a Labour councillor. I represent the ward of Bow East, and I'm also the deputy leader of the Labour group here in Cllr Hamlets.
Amazing. And maybe let's go back to the earliest memory of Cllr Hamlets, without obviously your age or anything delicate like that. What are your earliest memories? How has it changed? And what got you interested in politics to begin with?
Well, I've been in Cllr Hamlets all of my life. My early memories, I suppose, is the time when Tower Hamlets is a very different place than it is today, and it wasn't as diverse as it is today. It was the old East End. It was a very white working class community. So I do remember there was quite a lot of racial tension in those days. And one of my early memories is in the estate we grew up in. When we moved there, we were the first black family to live in that estate.
Wow.
And I do remember a lot of racial abuse that my parents received, and we did as well. So that was really, really shocking, and that's one of my early memories. One of them, for example, is the girl who lived upstairs. I thought was my friend. Silly story. But at the age of 5, the ice cream van came, and everyone calls up to their mum to get some money for the ice cream van. I did that, and she was like, "Come, go get money from your mother," only to steal my ice cream. So it was that kind of world, yeah. So it was very, very different. Again, the National Front. And there are parts of East London, especially Tower Hamlets, you couldn't go to. So Bow, where I represent, ironically now, was a real no-go area for lots of the Asian and the Somali community of the 70s and the 80s, because it was full of very kind of racial hatred. The Isle of Dogs was another place. There was this whole campaign to keep the island white that used to happen. So there was a lot of memories there. So it's definitely changed for the better, I have to say. And it's interesting to see my children grow up here now in Tower Hamlets, and the different experience they are having to the experience I had growing up here.
Yeah, and now you're part of that change. How does that feel? You know, you said that there was that unfortunate racial element in Bow. Now you're the representative for that area. First of all, you must be proud, and knowing how amazing you are as well. I'm very proud that someone like you is in that position. Maybe just a word on that and how you feel.
Well, the irony is Bow is where my old secondary school is, because my old secondary school was the Central Foundation Girls' School.
Okay.
Shout out to Central Foundation. And so to represent a ward where my old school's in is really great. But again, it's very different. If you look at Bow now, Roma Row, the area around that, Roma Row Market, for example, we have lots more diverse stall holders and market stall holders and owners of shops there. That wasn't the way before. But you also get the die-hard EastEnders. So we get many people coming from Essex who parents lived in Tower Hamlets, and they come into Tower Hamlets and they come into Roma Road Market because they remember the old East End market that it used to be, and they come there. And everyone calls it passionately the Roman, right? You're a East Ender, it's a Roman, right?
And it's done well to keep that heritage.
Yeah, it has. It definitely has.
Yeah, still allow an opportunity for other people to come in and trade.
It definitely has.
Well.
Yeah. So it feels good to be able to represent a place where, if you told 13, 12-year-old Amina, I would have thought, first of all, what the hell is a councillor? But secondly, I would have thought, no, never. Someone like me could never happen.
Yeah.
That proves how much progress we've had in this country.
Yeah.
That somebody like me can actually represent somebody in local politics.
And so let's focus a bit of your time as a councillor. What have been some of the highlights, lowlights, maybe even referencing current affairs and some of the challenges with the Tower Hamlets Council?
Well, if I step back, I kind of really got infused by politics when Tony Blair came in, right? So when Tony Blair became the Prime Minister and we had the Blair government, it was such an exciting time, and I got really excited because that government brought hope. Remember, I grew up under Thatcher, right? So I knew what Thatcher did to the country. My parents grew up under Thatcher in the 70s, and all the kind of drudgery and politics was quite heavy in those days. Blair came in, and it was this bright future for everybody, and no one was kind of left behind. And you had Sure Start, and at that time I remember working for Tony Banks, who was a West Ham MP, and it was a time when lots of people were coming in from countries like Somalia, which my ethnic background is, coming in as refugees. It was a very welcoming place for refugees. And we had freedom of movement, so people from Europe. So suddenly we had people from Europe coming here, whereas at the time, unless you were lucky enough to go on a holiday in the 70s, the 80s, you never actually met many Europeans, right? So there was a lot of that. So that really made me enthusiastic. As a child of immigrants, I'm very ambitious. I'm very much about, doing better than my parents. That's what was instilled in me. And I think for a lot of minority ethnic communities, that government really was. And I feel it now with Cllr, that's come back again.
Okay.
There's a bit more of that. Yeah, you can do it. It doesn't matter where you start. You can actually make it. There's a bit more of that now, I feel. That I didn't feel has happened for a long time with the Labour Party. But my highlights, because quite a lot of highlights really.
You've done amazing work.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love doing is during Brexit here in town, especially here. Look, you're in Canary Wharf, right? We have lots of banking businesses here, it's financial hub, right?
Financial district of
Europe.
Europe.
And we had lots of international bankers and European bankers and people from Europe working here. So when Brexit happened, obviously the banks were worried. People who work in the banks from European countries were quite worried. We as councillors were very worried. At the time I was the lead member for Culture, Art and Brexit. And I said, look, we need to have a Brexit Commission here. We are one of those boroughs that will be affected heavily by Brexit, and we need to be able to communicate with our residents and our workers here in the borough. So I spearheaded the Brexit Commission and I chaired it, and we had stakeholders from the banks, from the Canary Wharf Group, from Allgate Group, from our local NHS, our local cultural and tech scene here. You can remember a bit of Shoreditch, Tower Hamlets.
Yeah.
We had them as well. And then we reached out to our residents, and we'd reached out to obviously the people who will be affected by the settler statements, settler issue around being EU residency. And it went down really well. And we launched it in City Hall. We had Sadiq Khan at the time, and I felt that was our bit, saying to people, we see you as a local authority, we understand what's happening. And other East London councils actually kind of looked at that and thought, we should emulate that and copy that as well. So I was quite proud of that.
Yeah, and it definitely has an impact on retaining the London status as a financial hub district of Europe, because if your MDs and CEOs of these companies don't feel welcome and supported in their local area, then they'll think about moving elsewhere. So yeah.
And what we do forget as well, people who look at Tower Hamlets, they think, it's a haves and haves not. That is true, there is that, right? But what people do forget is a lot of these banks do contribute quite a lot of money to the local area and to local first sector organisations and community organisations,
well,
and they really do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a side of banking or business or capitalism people don't see sometimes. I'm not saying it's all great. There's more they can do. And I think one of the things for me when I became a councillor is I wanted to really bridge the gap between our young people in Tower Hamlets who felt that they couldn't get jobs into Canary Wharf and didn't see themselves in the workforce here, to really work with that. And we did a lot of work, and I'm proud to be involved in a lot of that, to make sure that Canary Wharf is in Tower Hamlets, it's not on its own, and local people should feel welcome. And I look around now, when I walk around, I see more young people and more people who look like me and you coming here and working here, and I think that's a real statement to the Labour admin that we had here that really wanted to push that.
Let's focus now on you spoke about the Somali representation. Is it fair to say it's kind of a minority within a minority? Maybe your early experience about that, and how proud you must be to be representing people from Somalia.
Look, Somali community is one of the oldest African communities, black communities in the UK, and many people don't know that. We predate Windrush, and most of them were seafarers that came here in the 1800s and settled in the East End. They settled in places like Tower Hamlets, in Newham, in Silvertown, places like Liverpool, Cardiff, and so it's a community that's always kind of been there, very small but has been there. And they are a black Muslim community. So I always say to people that there's lots of intersectionality between communities, okay? So growing up, I saw myself as black British, right? That's what it was in those days. But now the Somali community is very clearly a Muslim community as well as a black community. And I think policymakers, especially in local government and national government, sometimes don't see that. And we get swept up with the kind of one size fits all, they're black. Right? And if you look at, for example, Stop and Search, a lot of our young Somali boys get profiled twice. They get profiled as black and they get profiled as Muslim. So you have Islamophobia and anti-black racism. So it's double whammy for our community. And I think people don't understand that. So in terms of representation, it's not just a Somali community. There's Muslim Nigerians, there are Muslim Sudanese communities, there are so many other black Muslim communities, and not forgetting the Arab, Syrians, Iraqis and other communities here who don't have any representation locally or nationally, for example. I'm proud to say that when I became a councillor, I worked on, put together and founded and chaired Somali Friends for Labour. And from that, we did a lot of work with local activists here in Tower Hamlets and across the UK. And now we have about 25 local councillors, Labour Party councillors from the Somali community.
Amazing.
That's
Well
a
done.
big step for us. A lot more work to do. But then again, we don't have any GLA members who are Somali. We don't have a Somali MP. We have one guy
Yes.
who is mixed race, Somali heritage, but we don't have a full Somali MP in Parliament. And you know, people will say, well, that we don't have enough black people. That's true, we don't have enough black people in Parliament, but they're a minority within the black community. Okay, so that's what the party need to really be looking at, and I think we will get an MP at one point. We definitely will.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we do it before the Tories do, because the Tories are really working hard to make sure they represent as many communities as they possibly can. The Somali vote is growing. They're a very large community in the UK. They're not a small community. They're quite political, and they do participate a lot in politics. They love politics, to be honest. And with them, they bring the Sudanese community and Ethiopian community, which is growing. So there are lots of constituencies in the UK that Labour really need to look at, in terms of harvesting, in terms of working with, and in terms of looking at representation. Because, as you said, the country is changing, and it's going to keep changing. And as a party, we need to keep up with that and keep up with the representation that comes with that as well.
Yeah. You have a long history with West Ham, having worked for Tony Banks, having been just across the road for such a long time. You're talking about the change in demographics, change in constituency, which we know legally, you know, parliamentary boundary terms will change. And yeah, you know, the need for representation. Any more thoughts on that? And, you know, spoken about the need for an MP that represents the diversity of Newham.
I think so. If you look at Newham, I mean, Newham is far more diverse than Tower Hamlets, if I'm honest with you. It really is. I've got family in Newham. As I said, I work for Tony, so I did a lot of work in Newham. Newham is very diverse. And I think Newham is ready for a ethnic minority MP. I think it's a fitting time for them to have that, because I think, you know, we can't keep relying on communities to keep voting for Labour when they can't see somebody who looks like them in the position of power. How can we inspire younger generations who are from ethnic minorities in places like Newham when they can't see an MP who looks like them? How can we inspire them to join a political party, to get into politics, say to them, you know, don't worry, you can one day be an MP.
This is a space for you.
Yeah,
You belong here.
exactly. We can't keep saying that with one hand and not doing it with the, you know, with the other hand. There are many talented people in Newham who could easily take up that position. There really are.
And from surrounding areas.
And surrounding areas as well. The talent is there.
Yeah.
There's no denying the talent is there, and I think it would be a real shame if the party didn't place somebody of an ethnic background in somewhere like Newham, because they're ready. There's time, and it goes back to what I said about the change. We can't keep holding on to communities' loyalty if we are not showing them that we actually are loyal to them. Not you know, it's not like a bargaining chip. It's just, you know, it's just natural. I can't tell my young adult children vote Labour when they're like, well, why the Tories got more people of colour on the front benches and Labour doesn't have that, you know. And I don't want people, look, I'm very much from Tony Blair's school of thought, I'm sorry, but that's my politics, and I don't want people to see when my faction come into controlling the party as people that don't represent people of colour, because that's not true. They do. You know, my faction's done a lot for people of colour. They really have, for black people and Asian people.
It just needs to be more visibly seen.
Needs to be more visibly seen. I mean, look, let's be honest.
conversation.
For example, if you're looking at Somalis, we've got Abdi Duale. He is the first black man ever to represent be on the NEC.
National Executive Committee.
National Executive Committee Labour Party.
For those who don't know, yeah.
And he's also an ethnic Somali. So come on, that's brilliant. That is such an amazing achievement. And that happened under Cllr, and it happened under, you know, the new Labour Party that we have now, right? So that's brilliant,
Yeah.
okay? And so we have got the potential to be able to do more. So going back to your original question, I'm going on a bit, sorry.
No.
Yes,
it's good.
I really believe that Newham is ready, and I hope that the party use every opportunity we have where an MP retires or an MP is moves over to another seat, as happened here. It's a great chance for the party then to think, right, let's do this. Let's put into practice what we preach to our activists and our councillors and our supporters, that we want to we want to see the country represent on the benches. That's what we are told.
And
the rallying call that we hear. This is an opportunity, and I have faith in my party that they can do that.
I hope so too. As a civil servant, I can't say on camera, but I hope that the politics of East London is truly representative. So I endorse a lot of what you say, and with this platform, I'm hoping to amplify that, and so hoping we can have more conversations with more people to talk about that. I've known you for a long time, and I know not just on the policy kind of council side of things. Both with foreign policy, with the Somali government, Somali communities, you've done a lot there. Let's also spend a word on your work in the unions. You've done a lot in getting people into the union movement.
Yeah. Well, I'm hardcore GMB. Shout out to GMB. If you're not a union member, join the GMB. No, the GMB.
We love our unions.
The union. Listen, my dad. I'll tell you about union. My dad was a seafarer. And my uncles were, and my grandparents, right? So I grew up with unions in my house because I remember they used to be very proud to be part of the National Union of Seafarers, right? Even though at times the unions in those days could be quite racist to seafarers. And there was a time, I remember in 1956, James Callaghan, who was the MP for Cardiff, there was a massive Somali community there, many seafarers and Yemeni seafarers as well, stood up in Parliament and said, look, my Somali seafarers and Yemeni seafarers are unemployed because the National Union of Seafarers is not pushing them for jobs. There is a white men, and they're not getting paid the same as the white seafarers. So there's always been a bit of tension between that, and I think we've come a long way. But so once they joined the unions, my dad and others was that we are union men, and they were really proud. And from there, they sort of got into Labour politics as well. So the politics.
Unions are in your blood.
Unions in my blood, so the work I've done with the GMB is I've actually did a lot of work with the Somali community here in Tower Hamlets. Many of them in the care worker sector, many of them Uber drivers and hospital porters, who many of them are the new community that arrived in the last 20, 30 years, and they don't know what unionisation is. They really do need unions because some of them are on 0-hour contracts and all the rest of it. So I want to bring them into a room with the GMB union to say this is what a union offers, this is why it's good for you to join a union. And it was a really good event, and a lot of people were like, we didn't know this existed, we have rights as workers. And I was like, oh my God, yes, you do. And I want to do more of that work. And if I ever got into Parliament, I'd really be wanting to push more for workers' rights, because I think that's really important. It's a backbone of what this country stands for and exists,
Yeah.
Here in Tower Hamlets, we had our own recent strike with the refuge workers.
Just finished.
Just finished, and that was all about pay as well. And it was a sad and unfair for the residents of Tower Hamlets that it took a week and a bit. We could have been avoided. Newham. Shout out to Newham. They avoided the strike. They made sure they settled on the eve of the strike. Our local mayor decided that's not what he wanted to do. And so the residents were put through a week and a bit of, foul-smelling rubbish. Terrible scenes. Not very good for the borough. Our image again tarnished. And I'm glad it's been averted. I'm glad they came to resolution as well. But you've got to when you're a leader, you've got to be in a position where you can try and avoid those things if you can. But again, they were right to strike. They needed to strike for the right, and I'm glad they did that because, as I say, going back to the Somali community, people came to me and said they're on strike. Why are they doing the strike? And aren't they going to lose their jobs? And I was like, nope.
And these are the rights they have. This is why they can strike. Yeah, people need to be educated.
I'm always about educating people everywhere you can, know, and they were like, wow, okay, so yes, if you can go and strike, if you believe that you haven't got the right pay, the right working conditions, that's what you have, and that's where the unions come in, and that's why I think it's really important that the unions receive the respect that they should have, and I think that's really important. Yeah,
and you've played a major part in that. If your trajectory so far and history is anything to go by, if and when you do get onto the green benches, you would be amazing for the black community, for the Muslim community, for so many communities, for women as well. You touch so much. You must have experienced so many challenges because of the intersectionality of your different characteristics. And for the long time that I've known you, I've been inspired by that. So I just want to say that on record. I think we're almost out of time, so I might leave it there. And thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
As I said, hopefully we'll have more, because I think there are so many other people who share that view about representation and the changing demography of West Ham, and then parliamentary seat of West Ham and Bextor.
Yeah. And the time is now.
I think the
time is now.
No, certainly.
Yeah,
it probably was a bit early. I think we're a bit late.
Probably late.
We're a bit late.
But like I said, I have hope.
I have hope
and
too.
with that hope, why are you in politics?
Yeah. Amina Ali, thank you so much.
Thank you.